Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I want to talk today a little bit about fear. My second son had to go to the dentist today, and it's not his favorite thing. It's not any of our favorite thing, probably, but he has a particular aversion to the dentist, and it creeps right up there, into the realm of fear. And so it gave me a chance to have a chat with him about fear, and that brought me back to things that I have taught some of my students in the past about fear, and so I wanted to talk about it a little bit, and what a waste of time it is. Some of you old dogs, this won't be any news to you, so for you, feel free to chime in with your own comments and experiences and such as that. But some of you, less experienced people, and there is nothing wrong with being less experienced, because we were all less experienced until we were more experienced, right? So learn from others and then from your own experiences, and you'll end up being an old dog someday. um, About years ago, so I'm going to talk about my own fear here. Okay. And I had one. I had a walloping fear. Some of you already know what it is. 25 more years ago, whatever, when I taught martial arts in my gym, I had a lot of people coming in wanting to join the classes, and I wouldn't just take anybody. One of the things that I'd do is I'd talk to them first, and I would ask them, why do you want to take martial arts? And among the many answers, almost always they would include something like, well, I want to become a better person. I want to develop discipline. I want to learn the secrets of life, things like that. And I would explain to them that I thought, in my opinion, you could probably learn all of those things doing anything in life. You can learn the secrets of life and the principles of life building stone walls, I would imagine. The purpose of martial arts training was to learn how to fight. And if you got some of those lessons along the way, then that was great. But this idea that one particular thing would, give you the opportunity to develop special and secret skills is really kind of a misunderstanding of the whole thing. Well, years later, and I have some other stories that I'll probably tell about that another time. Uh, but years later, uh, I think I've told you how I was afraid of heights, and now I have my Christmas light business, and I spend half my time up on a ladder. But I was telling this to my young son, and the purpose that I talked about how you can learn the lessons of life doing anything is because I'm kind of playing around writing a book called Everything You Need to Know You Can Learn Hanging Christmas Lights. One of those things is about overcoming fear and the recognition that fear is a waste of time. And as soon as you get that in your head, then you start being able to deal with it properly. Now, I want to distinguish between rational fear and irrational fear. Rational fear is good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a warning that we get, right? It's just sometimes a warning, don't do something. Jumping into a tank full of great white sharks would be a rational fear because you have a pretty good expectation that it's not going to end up well. Of course, without fear, there's no ability. Fear is the obstacle against which we pit ourselves in order to overcome it and develop courage. And so without fear, there is no courage. Courage being not the absence of fear, but the overcoming of it. So when I first thought that I might want to start hanging Christmas lights, I didn't really want to be honest. I just wanted to put them on my house, but I was scared to death of heights. And I would get up. I know I've told this story before. 1, 2, 3 rungs on a ladder, and that was it. I had alligator arms and legs, and I was scared to death. And I'd look down there, and I'm sure that I looked a pathetic sight to anybody who watched and kind of knew or could guess what was going through my head, but the fear was very real to me. Now, it was an irrational fear, and you can say, well, that's not irrational because people are naturally afraid of heights, but it was irrational in this sense that I saw other people. I saw all these other guys putting lights on houses, and they weren't falling. As a matter of fact, I would go out. I'd stand inside my house when they came through to do all the hang all the lights, including on my house at the time. And I'd watch them. I'd watch how they set their ladders. I'd watch them go up and down. I'd watch them go up and down. And every time I'd say, well, okay, they didn't fall off the ladder. Now, you see, this is an irrational fear because most of you are going, wow, come on. But it was very real fear for me. And I'd watch them go up and down, and they'd move their ladder, and they'd go back up. And every time they did it, I'd say, okay, that one more time. Nobody fell. They didn't fall down. That ladder did not magically jump off of the house or scoot out from underneath them. And I know that ladder accidents happen. I've had one myself and broke my arm, but that was my misjudgment. But if you're doing it right, it's fine. So I would watch them for a couple of years. But see, in my mind, it was, even though they were doing it fine and they weren't falling, it was different with me. I was just sure that I would be the one that would fall. Now that's crazy, right? And I think I've told this before, that one of the reasons that I forced myself to do it was that I didn't want my kids to think that Dad was afraid of anything. I pretty much wasn't afraid of anything else in the world, but that I was. And I needed to get over it. Well, when I started working on it, and I worked gradually, and I won't bore you with the story that I've told before about painting my house, which took me all summertime. Finally, I realized little by little, every time I went up a ladder and every time I came back down, okay, that was one more time that I hadn't fallen. So I was kind of learning that, right? When I first started putting lights on other people's houses, I spent more time checking the ladder, readjusting the ladder, looking at where I wanted to put the ladder, making sure, I'd get it set, and then I said, well, I'm not sure that's perfect. I feel it's a little too steep or a little too shallow or whatever, and I'd reposition it. I spent 3 times longer messing with that junk than I did going up the stinking ladder and putting some lights up there, right? And now I can do a house in 3 hours that back then would take me 3 days because I was that scared. I would do a little bit and then a little bit higher, and at the end of the day, I'd just be worn out. Not so much, well, physically too, because I was always tense, right? I was tense on the ladder. And the slightest breeze come along, and I was, and that first season was a season from hell. But little by little, I got over it. And so, like I say, a house that I can do now in 3 hours took me 3 days back then. The point of this is that fear is normal. It can either be rational or irrational. Rational fear is, when you jumping into that tank full of great white sharks, right? That's a rational fear. Going up and down a ladder that hundreds of thousands of other people have done safely, being afraid of that is an irrational fear. It's nonetheless real to the person experiencing it. But the only question that you come down to is this: are you going to do it, or are you not going to do it? And when you get past that, that's kind of that trigger point. I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do it. And all that wasted time was that battle inside you saying, I don't want to do it, and here's why I don't want to do it. But I have to do it. But here's why I don't want to do it, and then I'm rationalizing the strength of that argument. Does that make any sense? I'm giving that strength I'm giving that argument strength by saying, but I don't think it's safe, or I don't think the ladder's right, or I think that the needle is going to hurt at the dentist, or anything like this. So that is one of the greatest things that I teach people now who are kind of going through any number of things, and this can apply to all sorts of things in life. That you give fear power when you give it attention, and when you put it front and center and you make it the center of attention, it's going to run your life. And if you can put that aside and just simplify it to the point where you say, am I going to do this or not do it? And then you make that choice. If you're not going to do it, then you don't have to be afraid. Okay? Put that ladder away. Put that whatever away in your life. You're not going to do it. Okay? But if that bothers you, and you say, but I should do it, then you got to go back and you got to get all that inner turmoil and inner conversation out of your head and just say, I'm going to do it. And then stop wasting your time arguing with yourself about why it's a bad idea. Okay. So that's the biggest thing. I've talked in previous ones about when in an attack situation or any crisis situation in your life, there are basically three enemies. The first is confusion, the second is fear, and the third is the attacker or the situation. Confusion is kind of, that inner turmoil. Fear is when you're given into it. And but if you get rid of those, then you simply have the situation, and your choice is very simple. Do it or don't do it. And then you won't be wasting half your life playing mental tug of war with yourself about should you or shouldn't you. And in this life, there are some things you just have to do. And spending time worrying about it is not only not going to help, it's a detriment to you. So I'll leave it at that. Do you have a fear? Do you have an irrational fear that is getting in the way of your life? Now, if it's not in the way of your life, say you have a fear of jumping out of an airplane with a parachute on. Well, if you don't ever intend to do that, you don't need to spend your time thinking about it, right? But if for whatever reason you are going to have to do it, then you're going to have to come to terms and just make your decision. I'm going to do it, not do it. So find something in your life. Is there something out there you need to come up against? And whoop. It's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to build inner strength. It's an opportunity to build a little bit more courage than you already have. So take that opportunity when it comes along. So I'll leave it at that. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And preparing clear thinking and the ability to deal with fear. It's one of the major things that can help you out if you can develop it. So if you have a good day, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.